I'm moving forward every day, Jesus. I just let him lead the way every second, every minute, every hour of the day. I'm moving with Jesus every day. See, 24/7 with Jesus every day. See, 24/7. I'm moving, see, with Jesus. I'm moving, see, with Jesus every day.
Have you ever lost something and just couldn't find it? You looked all over and you looked for long hours, sometimes into days, into weeks. And I suppose the most frustrating part of it is that you know it is somewhere around, but you just can't seem to find it, can't seem to put your hands on it. Well, Mary Edmund Sankar knows the reality of that fruitless quest, as she's here to share with us how she has been coping with the loss of one of her siblings. Mary Edmund Sankar, thank you for joining us on Chase 24/7. And I know it must have been a challenge for you to even think of doing this interview, but I'm sure it is for the good of those who might be listening. You have lost your brother. I may not want to say the word lost just yet, but he's missing in action.
Yes.
How long has it been?
Last Thursday, the 26th of September, was 2 years to date.
To put things in perspective, which brother is that, or which sibling is that? And you come from a sibling of M's.
Yes. Moses is the one who is missing, who has been missing for 2 years.
Right.
He's the middle of us.
Okay, and what the other ones are,
So
the names?
we have Michael, and Martin. So Michael first, then me, then Moses, then Martin, then Marcia.
Okay, wow. Michael, Moses, Mary. I'm not getting the order.
It's all right. It's all the M's. The M's.
But the unfortunate M we are dealing with is missing Moses.
Moses, yes.
Could you take us back 2 years and try to rehearse, if you like, the experience as you came to the knowledge of what has transpired or what transpired that fateful September the
26th.
26th.
While he went missing the 26th, and I'll be able to clarify that in a bit, we actually I got the phone call on the 28th, around 6 p.m.
Right.
The telephone rang, I answered the phone, and I heard a voice on the other line asking me, when last I saw Moses. I'm like, excuse me? Is Moses your brother? Do you have a brother by the name of Moses Edmund? And does he teach at Malik Secondary? So I was, yes. And so then the person proceeded to tell me they have not seen him at work for the week.
Wow.
And I'm like, no, that's not like Moses. He doesn't miss work.
Right.
It has to be something extraneous for that to happen. But the conversation went on, and so I realized, well, something really seemed to be amiss. So, there's this thing about fight or flight. So I just felt like this entire heat came over me. I got scared. I got into a panic. What is happening here? Because Moses is diagnosed diabetic, and he had been hospitalized before. So I was concerned that maybe he had another diabetic attack because he lived on his own. And so I said thanks, and I told her I will come up the road pretty soon. So I called Martin, and I told him about the phone call. And he said, well, okay, he's coming to pick me up now. And I called my other siblings and told them what was happening and that we were going up the road. While on the way, we decided to check Mount Hope Hospital, as I said, to make sure that he wasn't hospitalized or anything. And they had no record of him. So we proceeded to his address in Tunapuna. And his co-worker was there waiting for us. We were able to access the apartment where he lived. There didn't seem to be anything untoward there, but there was no sign of him. We were allowed to check to make sure that, he wasn't in the apartment or anything like that. And after that, we went to the Tunapuna police station where we lodged a missing persons report. The report was actually taken from my brother Martin.
Right, okay.
So they the police told us that they will investigate the matter.
Right.
And that started the whole investigation.
This is September 28th?
Yes.
Okay. Right.
September 28th.
But he would have been missing.
He was missing for 2 days.
2 days, right.
So we had already lost 2 days.
Right.
And of course, that was an area of concern, but there was nothing that we could do to expedite the matter.
Right.
So, well, of course, we kept checking to see if any further developments had taken place. Nothing had happened just yet until a couple days after we got information that he was threatened.
Wow.
And so we related that information to the police. As far as we know, they interviewed persons, other taxi drivers and other relevant persons. All of that, we were told, amounted to nothing that could be acted on.
Right.
So the days were going by, and one of my relatives asked if we could have a press service. By that time, of course, it was blitzed all over social media because, of course, I have an account going, not by my name,
Right.
but so a host of folks shared it, and the tutor group that he belonged to, they shared the information as well. So it was in the media, it was on IETV, it was on the Express newspaper. So it was circulated far and wide. Everybody got concerned, but there was nothing to tell us where to look or, so that I began to think, well, we looked at all these television shows, NCIS, Law and Order, you name it, and there was one they love to look at Without a Trace. So my husband has that on, my brothers, and I'm like, this is the reality. I mean, there's no trace of the vehicle he was driving. To date. As far as we know, it has never been found.
His vehicle?
The vehicle. Well, actually, the one he was driving at the time belonged to a co-worker because his was under repairs.
Right.
So that vehicle went missing and Moses went missing. And as I said, to date, we have nothing to work with as to any leads.
What would have gone through your mind as some of the possibilities that could have happened to Moses?
Well, when we were told about the threat, because before I was like, okay, if he was robbed, then you would find somebody somewhere. You usually find a body. So, and nobody was finding any body.
Right.
So my hopes were still up.
Right.
But then when the information came about the threat, I mean, that threw me into a totally different realm.
Right. But to get a threat or for somebody to report that there was a threat, is it that he may have spoken to that person or the person may have been party to it? Not to the threat, but party to knowing that there was a threat later on in his life? I'm just thinking.
Apparently, folks overheard the threat, but nobody's willing to come forward to say anything.
Okay. At this point in time, what sort of support you may have gotten from authorities to assist? Seeing that now, the whole question of a threat is circulating.
Well, of course, we reported it to the police, and as I said, they interviewed folks, and that was basically it. In terms of subsequently, though, from time to time, when I would go in and check, I would talk to police officers I know, and we had, that courage that they're working on the case. I was sent to the homicide division. I went, and we got a good reception there. But then there was a spate of murders in the country, so that that investigation seemed to have halted a bit. And so it has been hanging. One of the things that concerned me, and I shared it with my family members, is when we indicated that he plied his car for hire before work, after work, because like I said, he was teaching at Malik, but he worked his car early mornings and after work. So I was concerned that there was no, because I asked if the footage was checked for San Fernando and Cura, and I was told the footage wasn't checked. So that concerned me, because if you're working taxi, and I would want to think that would be one of the first things you would want to do. For whatever reason, I don't know. And the second thing is, if you dial his number, the phone is still active. As far as I know, a phone expires about 4 months after.
Right.
So I couldn't understand why the phone couldn't be traced. So those were two things that concerned me, that I thought could and should have happened.
Right. What was sort of, I know it's almost like a given, but your immediate reaction or your subsequent reaction to all of this transpired? Is it that you went into a state of depression? Is it that you were hopeful? Is it that you were confused? What are some of the adjectives that can describe how you feel or felt?
Truth be told, folks were shocked, because I was always optimistic that we would find. I never felt that he was dead. Okay. I believed, I felt at peace that my brother is alive.
Right.
I wasn't sure what happened, but previous to that, when things happened to my family members, I would sense, I would have a physical reaction. I remember one time, one of my relatives was in trouble, and I got a diarrhea and, all those things. So there were always signs, but there was just nothing this time to make me believe that he wouldn't show up.
Right.
So I was very optimistic for most of the times. There were the moments when you would go into bewilderment. You would like, what is this? Why is this? But for the most part, I was very optimistic that.
How did the other M's react?
The thing is, Pastor, you men are strange. So my sister and I...
We think you guys are strange, but this is you are the guest, so I'll treat you kindly.
No, in that, my sister and I would converse.
Right.
A whole lot.
Right.
My brothers, up to this day, I am not too sure.
Right.
What is in their head and what is in their heart. I know they miss their brother. I know they're concerned. I know all of that. But in terms of expression, so that's why I said you men are strange.
Yeah, we communicate, but on a higher level.
Okay.
But I'm sure in their own way, they speak.
Because from time to time, I would observe Martin.
Right.
They were... And they interacted a lot.
Yeah, right.
And you would see him, and I would say, I think he's missing his brother,
Yeah.
But I wouldn't ask.
Right.
Because I didn't want to, stir up just in case.
Yeah, it could be a case of not wanting to be vulnerable. You have to be strong.
Michael, Michael, on the other hand, I know he carries a lot of anger.
Okay.
That's my elder brother.
Right.
He carries a lot of anger.
Over this situation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What is he angry about? What?
Well, there are some suspicions that he has.
Right.
And those things make him angry. So, we try to keep him, cool and calm.
Very well.
You can't just make assertions and act on them and, that kind of thing.
I suspect that you did get some support systems from your home or family circle. What about the church?
Yes, I must say, on behalf of my family, I've thanked him many times, but I want to thank Pastor Leslie Moses, the president of the church. He and Moses had a good relationship.
Okay, Moses and the president Moses.
Yes,
okay.
And he always reminds me that Moses was his friend.
Okay.
So he called all the different meetings, conventions, whatever. Right. He would always have them pray.
Okay.
On behalf of our family and pray for, Moses. Initially, it was pray for him, and now it's to pray for the revelation of the Lord as to, what is happening. But he has been supportive up to last week when I was at the conference office. Again, he chatted with me on the matter. In terms of pastors, we've had a barrage of pastoral support.
Okay, great.
My pastor, Pastor Patrick Roy, has been a tremendous source of support to us. And you have been there, Pastor Manza. I can't call all the pastors, but who have been there for us.
Had support.
Yes, and church members as well. They keep sending messages of hope, messages of encouragement, reminding me, tell your family we're praying for you guys, and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So the support from the church was tremendous, and we deeply appreciate that.
Mary, you and the other siblings are certainly not the first family to have lost somebody so dear to them. Some may have lost them and they know exactly what happened. Your case is that you're not sure what happened. And you did speak, and you are confirming that, you know, you got support from pastors, from church members. Was there any time, because there are people looking at this telecast who perhaps are not as deeply spiritual as you are, or perhaps they were until a situation like this happened. Was there any time that you felt God let you down?
How do I put that? It's not a matter of God let me down. It's more, why did you allow this to happen? There must be a reason. And because I couldn't understand the reason, there were moments, there were times, especially like on Moses' birthday last year, I just went ballistic. I'm like, God, you need to say something. I mean, it's almost a year, and, you know, I need to hear from you. I know you know exactly what happened. So please tell us something. So, you know, you get those moments when you want God to answer.
Sure.
And the silence is not always easy to deal with.
Yes, tell me about it.
So, you know, people talk about, your family's strong, you are strong. And I say, no, it's not strength of myself. It is the fact that, you know, I believe in God.
Right.
I don't understand what he's doing, why he's allowing it, because for me, anything that happens to you, God has to orchestrate or allow. So I couldn't understand. But yes, there are times when, you know, you feel that level of despondency, and the waiting it gets difficult.
Right. You didn't go down any valley of despair and say, well, Lord, you may have forsaken me. I mean, knowing what God can do, especially when you know man is limited, but God is not. Was there any time when you felt, Lord, I mean, you did cry out for him to speak, but intervene in a more direct way to bring back, or at least give you some kind of closure?
I guess because I have been through some really painful experiences in my journey, I didn't go into despair this time. I went into despair previous. So I have been learning over time that God comes true. And that is what I held on to. I kept holding on to that. If I can speak, I know in the case of my sister, she went through a whole lot more. She had a lot of emotional issues, even spiritual issues that she shared with me. So it's not that my family has been, you know, exempt from pain and suffering, but we all dealt with it differently.
Right.
Yeah.
How have you been able to treat with the silence of God? I mean, how has that ministered to you?
So while in the process, it was 2 days after I cried out to God.
And this is 2 days after, a year after?
Yes, 2 days after, a year after. And I got this devotional. I do my devotionals, and I got this one from My Utmost for His Highest by Oswald Chambers. And I want to share it. So I've penned it so that I can share. It says, after God's silence, what? And the text is John 11:6. It says, when he had heard, therefore, that he was sick, he abode 2 days in the same place where he was. He, of course, being Jesus. And Mr. Chambers continues, has God trusted you with a silence? So when I read that, I was like, geez.
That caught your attention.
And then I continued, a silence that is big with meaning. So, of course, this hits home now to the deepest part of me, because I'm like 2 days before crying out to God, you need to stop the silence. And here we go. God's silences are his answers. Think of those days of absolute silence in the home at Bethany. is there anything similar to those days in your life? And I said, God has to be a practical joker. What is this? Because we are going through the very experience. So it continues, can God trust you like that? Or are you still asking for a visible answer? God will give you the blessings you ask if you will not go any further without them. But his silence is the sign that he is bringing you into a marvelous understanding of himself. Are you mourning before God because you have not had an audible response? You will find that God has trusted you in the most intimate way possible with an absolute silence, not of despair, but of pleasure, because he saw that you could stand a bigger revelation.
Wow.
If God has given you a silence, praise him. He is bringing you into the great run of his purposes. The manifestation of the answer in time is a matter of God's sovereignty. Time is nothing to God. A wonderful thing about God's silence is that his stillness gets into you and you become perfectly confident. Right about then I said, hallelujah, thank you, Jesus. Because you're strengthening me for the silence. And you're strengthening us. Because I'm always thinking of my siblings as well. As I get revelation, I'm thinking of, so I'm ready to share with them. And so it ends, I know God has heard me. His silence is proof that he has. And so, Pastor, you know, it is not all the time you will get the answers you're looking for. But because of my journey and our journey of God building us, I think he allowed this experience right about the time he knew that we could handle it in and through him. And so that brought me tremendous comfort to know that, you know, God is trusting us because he has prepared us. Somewhere I read a devotional recently that says God uniquely prepares and chooses us for the tests that we must go through. I'm like, my goodness. So God knows that we can handle this. Even though I want to give in, and even though I want to throw in the towel, as it were, God was the one who prepared. And being prepared by God means we can handle it.
Praise the Lord.
And that is what keeps me going day by day.
One of the most powerful statements I heard from what you just quoted is that God's silence is his answer.
That's right.
While we're looking for the answer or waiting for him to audibly say something, he is saying something by not saying something. That's
right.
Awesome.
That's right.
And I suppose he does that all the time to lots of people, because sometimes words do not really soothe the heart.
True.
Just knowing that somebody is there, even if they're not saying anything, but you know the person is right there with you. I think that really helps. It reminds me of that story, I think it's recorded in Luke chapter 24, when Jesus was on the way of the journey to Emmaus with those two disciples, and he just kept silent. But he joined in the conversation. Well, joined in by, listening to them, and then eventually he spoke. And but by that time he had listened so much. And I'm saying with you, he has been on that journey with you for 2 years, and you're still strong. I mean, you have to be either audacious, insane, to be holding on to a God who is not saying anything to you audibly, but is still trusting. How is that possible, Mary? We have a few minutes again before we wind up.
You know, there's this hymn that says, my faith has found a resting place. And if we take the time to recount how God has blessed us in our lives. As I said, I went through a whole lot of trials. And even as I am going through this one, I reflect on times past and how God came through. And, there's a statement that Pastor Wayne Sampson made years ago that has really, really ordered how I think and how I approach life. And that statement is, nothing comes to the child of God except it is Father filtered. The first time he said that, I said, you had to be out of your mind.
It sounds like Pastor Samson.
Yeah. I said, you have to be out of your mind. Some of the things I go through, if Father filtered that. And, you know, through all of this, that is my hope.
Right.
Because, as I say to people, Pastor, what do we have if we don't have hope?
Amen.
I think of all these folks who don't know Jesus as we do. And I wonder what they're going through. And that is why I was happy when my sister came and she said, you know, there was this missing persons day coming up. I don't know how many people know of it. The day of the disappeared, which was the 30th of August. And so we organized this service for families. Abigail's family attended. And let me just interject here. I want to say thanks so much to Missing Persons of Trinidad and Tobago.
Right.
That organization has been supportive right through. So they published it and they attended and stuff like that. And we're even thinking, we're working on actually a symposium for families of missing persons, because two things I'll say quickly, I know we're wrapping up. One is we have to give consideration to the legal implications. A lot of folk don't know. It's not until it confronts you that you realize how many things stay in abeyance. We can't do anything until 7 years have passed, and if so, Moses is declared legally dead. So you're in abeyance with everything for 7 years. Then the psychological, the emotional, all of these issues. So, you know, in being able to appreciate what God is able to do for us, we are hoping to help. This whole experience, I remember one of the things God said to me is that he is making of this test a testimony for himself. God has said some really hard things for me to swallow, you know.
Right,
but because he's God,
That's
and because he has never failed me yet, he has come through all the times for us. So that is what keeps us anchored in faith.
Amen.
Because of what he has done in times past. And so to the folks who are hurting, we need to take time to reflect on how God has been good to us, how he came through with the little things as well as the big things. And that will help. I'm not saying it will eliminate all of the pain and all of that, but it will help in your journey of coping.
Wow. So as you are coping, you are hoping in Christ.
Yes.
Mary, one last thing, 10 seconds.
Sure.
Is God still good?
Awesomely good, Pastor.
Amen.
Awesomely good. He has never given me a reason to say he's not good. Even in pain, he's good.
Amen.
And, you know, for me, it could have been a lot worse. Because there were things in my life that almost sent me insane. This has not. So God is awesomely good.
If I give her another hour, she will be talking and talking. But thank you so much, Mary Edmund Sankar, for sharing just an excerpt of your experience, and I'm sure it would have blessed the hearts of some of you who would have been listening. Coping with loss. The loss has not been found, but Jesus is still around. And if Jesus is around, even if you haven't found your loved one, find Jesus. Rather, let Jesus find you, and he will help you cope with any loss. Thank you for taking the time to be with us on JC 24/7. We look forward to having you once again. See you next time.